What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Couple on Fire podcast. Today, we have an amazing show coming up with an awesome couple that's actually part of a group that we have. And when is that coming up?
Right this second.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Couple on Fire podcast. This podcast is for couples, for marriages, and for families within the Christian community. We exist to help break the stigma that happens within the Christian community. We're talking about divorce, we're talking about addiction, and we're talking about so much more. We believe that all this is possible in this life, strictly based on the power of Jesus Christ and his ability to restore us fully. Let's dive in. What is up? What is up? Welcome to today's show. I am one of your hosts, Josh. I'm here with the always most intelligent human on the planet Earth.
Why didn't you say I was pretty?
Because you said last time.
I know.
I said every time. Oh, she thinks I didn't remember. I did. I remember. Christy is her name, by the way. She thinks she's being sneaky. She's not sneaky. Okay, we know better. Okay, so we have an amazing interview. Before we jump into that, do you have anything awesome that you want to share today?
I do.
On that big brain? Yours?
I do. So we went to an escape room with our life group.
We did.
Growth group. Sorry, we changed the names.
We did.
Our growth group to an escape room, and we had 11 of us go in here. First off, they didn't turn their air conditioning on that day. So we had sweat running down every part of our body. Legs, gross. Back, arms, armpits, neck, face, everything.
It was gross.
So people's patience level got less and less and less while we were doing this. But it was a lot of fun. We did not escape.
We did not. It was the hardest one they had.
We blame it on Doug Lindstrom. Doug, if you're listening.
Yeah, we blame
it's wilts. Okay, the code was wilts.
You can't say that. It's against the rules.
Oh, crap.
We're going to get sued. Great. Way to go. It was a lot of fun, though. It was a lot of fun. So being involved with our growth group it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love escape rooms. If you have yet to do an escape room, we don't get any feedback for this plug. I mean, any money back for this plug. Right. But if you should go to an escape room, the one here in Davison is a lot of fun, but they put a lot of thought into it. And it's just, I don't know. It's
whoever does those, they're brilliant, actually.
Yes.
I know. I'm impressed by those humans. They have really big brains.
Bigger than mine.
No. Different big. Maybe it's wider, not as deep. I don't know. Okay, so we want to start off by bringing some friends on right now to talk to them. They are part of a blended family. They have an amazing story, and they actually live nearby us, and we didn't even know that till getting to know them while they've been in our group. So it's really kind of awesome that we're in the same neck of the woods. And
they live in the Mitt.
They live in the Mitt, right? They're trolls, right?
Yep.
Under the bridge.
Yep.
Christy
under the bridge is trolls. Above the bridge is not trolls.
It's untrolls. Right. All right. Without further ado, I would like to bring on Rob and Carie.
Hello.
Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What's up? All right. So
we're excited to have you on.
Yes, we actually
I am more excited than Josh.
We're excited too.
She likes to win at all the things, so that's fine. We're going to let her win. So let's just dive right in, okay? So we're grateful that you guys are here. We've had an opportunity to kind of get to know you guys a little bit, but for those that don't know who you are, why don't you give us a little bit of a snapshot about how you guys met? Do you guys have children? What does your lives look like coming up until this point?
Are you going first, or am I?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. I am Carie. I have 3 kids from a first marriage. I am divorced. I left an abusive relationship, so that was the worst thing I could have ever gone through, but I learned a lot about myself. So I have a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And plus to that, I teach preschool. So I'm very busy, needless to say.
Yeah.
We've been married since 2020. We got married in the middle of all the craziness of COVID. What else?
You guys were forced together, and you're like, "Hey, we might as well get hitched."
We met. Well, we actually went to high school together. He graduated with my brother, and I graduated with his brother. And then during my so when I was going through my divorce, housing around here is really tough to begin with, especially income-based housing. And I basically told my parents, like, "Hey, I can either live with you because I moved to their house when I was separated and going through my divorce, or you can help me get a house, possibly." So we started looking for housing. And my dad and I found a house about 3 miles from my parents' house. And it was a huge fixer-upper. Like, it was my dad's like, okay, but you're going to have to help me type of thing. So my dad and I spent a good year working on that house. And then my brother, I love him dearly, he called
it and then lead into it. So I'm also divorced. I have no kids. I was divorced before I was a Christian, and because of the divorce, I became a Christian. Otherwise, we would not be together. And so I went about 12 years and just kind of doing my own thing. And her brother got a hold of me and said, "Hey, you want to help me, roof her house?" And I'm like, "No, I got stuff going on. I'm working on my yard, whatever." Well, like that night it rained like 3 inches, so the yard was underwater. So I called him back. I'm like, "Okay, I can come over now."
Yeah.
So I get over there and we start working on it. And this is the only time I have ever had game. We were running out of supplies, and I looked at her brother and I was like, "Hey, just send Carie to the store with me. I've got my truck. We'll jump in the truck and go." And so she was really mad about that because she thought it was her brother's idea.
Trying to set us up.
Oh.
So I was mad at my brother for a year or more. And I was telling Rob how mad I was. He was like, "It was my idea."
Yeah. So then
Smooth.
So then we started kind of talking after that. It was probably 6 months before we actually started dating.
Yeah.
So we were, she was just going through the divorce thing. I had been through it, so we were kind of talking back and forth, and then we just decided that we should go on a date, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge step, though. If you were like a bachelor for 12 years and then you're like, you meet this girl and you're like, yeah, I'll take on 3 kids, like.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually from a blended family also. So my dad my stepdad adopted my brother and I. And so we call him dad now. But so I was, I think, 12 years old when my mom and stepdad got married. So I was like, "Oh, I could totally do the blended family thing."
Yeah.
I got a whole new respect for him.
Yeah, it's super easy. There's nothing to it.
So easy.
Yeah.
So we started dating, and then what he didn't know at the time before we started to really date was during the whole divorce process, I told the Lord, I was like, "God, I'm not going to date. I'm not going to look for anybody. I'm not going on, eHarmony. I'm done. Like, this is how men are. I want nothing to do with this." But then I said in my heart, okay, but if you have someone for me, he has to have a beard because only men can grow beards. He has to have a blue truck. Guess what he drives? And he has to have a servant's heart. And then when we started talking and his blue truck pulled up the driveway, I'm like, "Oh no, what did I bring?" But
Wow.
I mean, we have an amazing relationship. So
it's her fault I drive a blue truck because I was actually looking for an orange one.
Yeah, right. Better not lose that blue truck. You might be out the door.
I love it when we give God stipulations like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never getting married again, and if you expect me to, then I'm going to give you these list of things that I know there's no way all of these things are going to align, and then I'll do it. And God's like, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah.
Well, I had this checklist of what I was looking for in a wife, and I'm like, "This is what I want," And God's like, "No, I'll show you what you're supposed to be looking for."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, you've been on yourself for 12 years. I'm pretty sure you don't know." That's probably what he was thinking.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's great humility, though. I think that's what's amazing about being in blended families is we really learn humility whether we want to or not. And
Sure.
and we're like, I don't want this to fail. So what do I have to do to make it work? Oh, wait a minute. It's a lot of me that needs to change and adapt and flex and be willing, and that's that comes with just truckloads, even blue truckloads of humility. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what made you guys want to be on our podcast?
So we've been kind of studying healthy relationships since before we were really dating. That's kind of what we talked a lot about before we were dating. And so we actually stumbled on you guys because Family Life Radio, I think it was, put out a advertisement for your
event.
Blended
Yep.
family event. Yeah.
And we actually missed it. We didn't get to go, but
We were so bummed.
we started watching you guys on YouTube, and then we bought your book and went through the book.
Yep.
And I think that we have a passion for healthy relationships and healthy marriages. And
Yeah.
so I'm hoping that maybe our story can help somebody else.
I love that.
Yeah, so do I. I think
Yeah.
that's exactly what God's calls us to do, right? Find and seek out how we can help other people through the way that he's helped us. And I think it's amazing. I think, and that's the main reason why we want you guys on, is you have a heart and you care about what it really truly takes to have a healthy marriage.
You have to work at it.
You do. And I mean, God tells us, right? Your marriage is the most important relationship on this planet. And it's amazing how much we don't focus on that, or most people don't.
No, it's
That's
hilarious to me too, because we hear now, I tell Josh, like, we must be hitting it now, because we're starting to get some negative comments on like YouTube and stuff like that. And what I love is when people are like, I can tell that you guys won't last, or things like that. And I'm like, no one knows the work that you put in behind your relationship. Like, you guys are part of our private Facebook group type of thing. And you guys are doing the same type of work that Josh and I do in our relationship to remain strong. We do a gratitude journal. We pray together. We have open communication. We have the hard communications. And that's the type of couples we want on this podcast, because that's what we want to encourage other blended families. Being blended is hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, Rob, I came from a blended family. My dad was married 5 times. I can do this. Like, blending, it's so easy. Like,
Right.
It is not easy.
No, it's not. It's harder than I even realized. But
Yeah.
I think the difference has been when you have a man that's willing to admit when they're wrong and to follow Christ. That's been the really cool part for me. And like, I just got to witness him like 2 or 3 times in the last few days, like witness to my kids on their level about like, hey, this hurts my heart when you act this way, instead of just, being angry because they're acting out. So like, and I would say too, that because of how hard we have studied healthy relationships, it's been really cool to see God bringing to us people like dear friends and people that are acquaintances saying, hey, I'm struggling in my marriage. Can you pray for me? Or what tools did you use? And I can share links and that kind of thing. So it's been neat to see God working in that way.
I love that you brought that up, because nothing can compare to when you have a husband that seeks God and takes everything back to God and takes everything back to prayer, and everything, the way he treats you, the way he leads the family, all of that is God honoring. It is no words can describe what that means.
Exactly.
So
I would agree.
So, Carie, you said you brought in 3 children into you guys' relationship. Tell us a little bit about how you feel that has impacted your relationship.
And how old are they?
Well, she told. I think she told us earlier.
Yeah.
9,
10, 9, and 6.
10, 9, and 6.
Oh,
okay.
I missed it.
So,
Sorry.
so you brought 3 kids in. So tell us how that's really impacted your relationship with Rob, because Rob didn't bring in children. Yeah. So tell us how that's kind of impacted it.
So it's been hard in the sense, because for the first year and a half, we had every other weekend, or in the summers, every other week. But because of a situation that came up, my 9-year-old refuses to go on her dad's parenting time now. So we have gone from this time of like just us to now she is there all the time. And, we honored that in her because we know that we're her safe people. But it's been harder. So we've had to try to figure out, like, it changes what it looks like with, dating, like still dating your spouse type of thing. The challenges have been like trying to teach Rob about the kids and like how to parent, because like the poor man came into 3 kids and all of a sudden there's all these behaviors, and and part of my background is education, especially in early childhood. So I have all the trauma training and the conscious discipline, all the methods I would use in my classroom, and trying to model that, I would say, is probably, and he's really great about being willing to try something new and try to see how that works. But I think behavior would be a hard thing too.
Give Rob some trauma training.
She's very gifted with kids. I am not.
Really?
No.
So tell us your reflection on that then, Rob.
Yeah, it's a struggle because they're young, so they don't know how to control their emotions. They don't even
Mm-hmm.
understand them. And here I am as an adult that I've figured out that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why are they screaming? Why aren't they just being normal?
That's so true.
That is
So,
I'm sitting there going, that is normal.
yeah. So yeah, it's real different coming into
Yeah.
kids that are not yours, and they're just so different from one to the next.
Yeah.
So
Personality wise, and I think because we still have to deal with a lot of court stuff and CPS reports and all the things that we have to manage, it's been tricky to navigate what is really trauma reaction, especially our youngest, versus like what is just trying to get her way type of thing. So that's been a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
So what's some strategies that have helped you guys successfully blend? Like how do you manage stress and keep your relationship going strong? All of those things to successfully blend all of you guys.
Well, every Tuesday night we watch you guys. That is our you need to go in your bed, kids, and we will come tuck you in afterwards, and this is our time. So that's been one of the strategies.
yeah, we try to. So right after we got married, we were actually gifted a trip up to the UP. And we were staying with a couple that does, I think it's called Symbis.
Yep.
So her brother knew them. He had gone through it, knew them real well. And so he sent us up there. And as I'm pulling into the driveway, I'm like, we don't know these people. And we just agreed to stay at their house for the weekend. Right? It's the middle of nowhere.
The UP. Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
UP,
so-
it could be sketch.
Yeah. And here I am just going, I trust my brother. Let's just go.
Yeah. But trying to do those things that focus on the marriage, we still have to parent, but we have to put a lot of work into our marriage, especially with all of our backstory. She came from abuse. I came from a situation that my wife had an affair and got pregnant from that affair. Didn't tell me until after 6 months after the baby was born. So I had a child, lost that child. So there's just all that trauma from our past that we have to kind of navigate. And a lot of it you can't navigate with kids around.
Yeah.
You can't have conversations with kids, jumping up and down and stuff. So trying to find those times where we can sit down and watch a podcast, or we actually downloaded that book that you guys were talking about a couple weeks ago about the
Mountaintop something.
I forget what.
Yeah, Megan Martinez
Oh, yeah.
shared it with us. She says they use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we downloaded that. We're just trying to find a time to go through it now. But we got to try to keep as much focus on the marriage as we can so that we can, we're participating in each other's healing.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was one thing
That's
we
so
learned
well said.
in premarital counseling. Like he's like, the pastor was like, you guys are going to participate in each other's healing. And that really changes the way, when she's having a panic attack or something like that, it changes the way I see it, because I'm not just like,
Get over it.
Here she goes again.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, something's really wrong. And, we have to dig into that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say that, to the root of these, the result or, at the root of these issues really comes down to probably a lot of trust issues with you guys, I would assume, to some degree. So this is a question really for both of you guys. How do you guys manage deepening or building trust within your relationships with each other, as a married couple?
I think for me, for one, I think early on, there was just something God-given that I just trusted him fully. I don't even know how to explain it. But since then, since getting married, I've had to learn, like, I can feel it when I'm shutting down emotionally. And I've had to be vulnerable so many times with him and say, like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I would say that it goes back to open communication piece that you guys have talked about before, of like, that's why open communication and trust is so important, because without open communication, you can't build that trust of, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, and this is why I need you to listen to me. Just having that is kind of a twofold type of thing. So for me, it's having that ability to say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm struggling with. Let's talk about it, versus like knowing that he's not going to sit there and minimize my feelings or make fun of how I'm feeling, more of like a, let's talk about why you're feeling this way type of thing. So that's for
Love
me.
it.
Yeah, communication's a big thing. Just we don't have any secrets from each other. You guys were talking about cell phones, the one phone, and yeah, we know each other's passcodes. We can get on the phones whenever we want.
Yeah.
If I'm driving in the vehicle and my phone goes off, I'm like, hey,
Check that.
check that text message and see who it is.
Yeah.
So there's just I'd say that for me, God had to do a lot of work in my life for me to be able to get to a spot where I can trust somebody again. And I got to know her so well before we started dating, just in our friendship, that I can see it when she's struggling. Like if I say something to her and she's, gonna have a trigger or something there, I can see it written all over her face, and I have to stop and go, hey, I'm not attacking you. Like this is not an attack. I know exactly what you're thinking. This is not what I said.
Yeah.
And we have to, step back and slow the conversation down.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and it helped Carie with trusting him because you gave God a checklist, and the guy just pulled up like meeting all of those points.
I know, right?
So that probably helped a little. But Rob, I'm sure we've been designed for the men to lead us. A lot of women don't want to admit to that, but when we're Christians and we're following what God wants for our marriages, if the guy is following God and God honoring, we want to, from our core, follow that man because that's what we've been designed to do. We have been taken from the husband's rib, right? Adam's rib to be his helper and to be his partner in life. And so a lot of that is harder work, I think, on you and the man, like I have panic attacks. I have those types of things too. And you were grieving of some sort of a lost family. Yeah, you were, by yourself for 12 years, but then getting with someone new and having an insta family, like as we like to call it, it's like you had to go through your own grieving process, I'm sure, that sparked up some previous feelings in you. And then you also wanted to be, learn her, be her friend and learn what is triggering to her and help her. That's participating in the healing. So having that communication is just listening to you guys' story is just beautiful. Of how God, was intertwining all of these things for you to even come together.
Yeah, I mean, I hear willingness and desire.
Yes.
And I think you can't teach that to somebody.
No.
We get people that come to us all the time and be like, okay, what's the secret? There is no secret. The honest to goodness secret is willingness and desire. I want to make this work more than I want anything. And, when you guys both come from something so traumatic, which is what you have, right?
Yeah.
To be able to come and make it work. I mean, it's a miracle because of your willingness and your desire. And I think it just pours out of you guys just listening to you talk. It's incredible.
And going back to what other tools that we've used too, because life gets busy, let's be honest. Life gets really busy, especially with 3 kids. But when Rob suggested buying the book for me that you guys had made, I was like, okay, let's do it. And then as we started going through it, so I don't know, I was just so easy for me to fill it out. Like I'd be like days ahead. He'd be like, you need to slow down. Like I'm not even that far ahead. And then like we're camping and we're like reading each other's like answers to what we were thinking. And they were not exactly the same, but so similar. It was interesting to like know that like we both were like desiring to have like, connection and time spent together type of thing. So that was another tool, just that gratitude journal of just saying like, hey, this is like a really cool idea of stepping back and saying life is busy. Yeah. But you're still my favorite person type of thing.
Yeah. Cause that's what the Bible talks about is the marriages Satan wants to divide families and marriage is first and foremost on that list. Yep. Right. And the statistics for blended families, blended marriages when kids are involved is worse than nuclear first marriages. So putting God at the center and constantly putting in work, and it is work. You get tired. Like you don't always feel like listening. Like I don't want to list out the things I'm grateful for you today. Okay. Like that's the way that we feel. But then talking about that, like not just like walking around bitter, but being like, I don't feel like being grateful for you today.
Well, you can write it down and show it to them. You don't have to say it.
But talking about those things, like, because he's my favorite person. He's my favorite person. And, I'm his favorite person because I say so.
She is.
But I love that you guys talk about that. Like you downloaded the thing that was shared, The Mountaintop by Megan a couple episodes ago. Yeah. There's always something more to be doing to make us stronger and be doing more. And continuing the work is what God wants us to do. Yeah. So I love that. Yeah. You go, because I've talked a lot.
Okay, so what are some ways you guys are waiting on God to show you the next steps in your ministry? So you guys shared a little bit with us about your desire to really help other couples. So what do you guys feel like you're waiting on for the next step for really to start beginning doing this?
We're waiting right now. We're trying to get in contact with an organization here in town. They put on events at another church. Like marriage date nights kind of thing. And our church is looking for a liaison for our church and their organization. Yeah. And so we're waiting to get in contact with the right people to try to see where that's going to lead. But we really we don't know. We're waiting, but we know that we can't just sit still and not do anything.
And we've been taking steps to connect with people within the church because we left this church for a while just because of COVID and other some stuff going on. And it's been interesting to see how God has made it known this is where he wants us. Like my daughter was just baptized here this last summer because we started going back to this church and we were like, I really felt like I needed to have a conversation with her. So my 9-year-old got baptized about, back in June. And it was the coolest thing to see her can make that commitment. Like, I want to be baptized. So we started talking to people like leadership here and saying like, hey, how can we get plugged in? And like, God's been opening a lot of doors. Like, okay, God, you're being very loud right now. Like, all right, we'll be involved. So we don't really know where it's going to go, but we told the lead pastor, like, we're very passionate about walking with other people and sharing the same resources of like how to be a healthy marriage type of thing.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever attended Celebrate Your Marriage in Mackinac?
No. The one that Mackinac, no, we haven't.
Okay, so Jay and Laura LaFoon, which is the ones that run that, they do something called an ultimate date night too. Actually, Christy and I are going to meet them this Friday at their house for lunch. We try to meet them every few months. They're just really awesome people. So we definitely can give you guys a connection to kind of get this ball rolling for you too, to kind of, get yourselves well connected with somebody that they're extremely connected, like all the way connected. So they've been doing it professionally for 30 years. And so they're a great connection for somebody that maybe you could get connected through into your church too. So
that'd be cool.
Get your ball rolling and a cooking.
And Kirk McGregor commented and said, well said, willingness and desire. God has to be at the center. Marriage is work. It is worth it. Stay strong. And Kirk McGregor, him and his wife, we actually met him. We went to the Step Family Summit that Ron Deal puts on a couple of years ago. And that we got to meet a lot of blended families in coaching world, ministry, all over. Had some developed software systems, like different dating things. I mean, it's awesome networking time. So if you guys ever look up the Step Family Summit through Family Life, not Family Life Radio, it's Family Life, right?
Yeah, it's Family Life.
Yeah, it's Family Life.
It's Family Life, which is different than Family Life Radio.
It is. Yes.
Yeah. They do the blended portion.
But and you guys could go to that.
We can get you well connected with all these things so you guys can continue to kind of share your heart and be part of this.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's a need for it, that's for sure. There's no doubt.
Yeah, there is, for sure.
So what are some things that you wish you knew before blending your family, and what steps are you taking to educate yourselves now? Besides, I know you guys are doing work stuff, and you said you're studying other couples, other healthy relationships. What's some other things?
I think for me, I wish I could have had more trauma training and what abuse looks like, because I didn't know what I was going through until I was pinned to the wall. And my ex-husband's hand was on my neck and screaming in my face. And I left that day. Actually, it's come up in 5 years. It's October 14th is my freedom day, is what I always say. But it was then I went to counseling, and I was handed this like diagram of what abuse was. And it's almost a twofold, because if I would have known what healthy looks like, I would have hoped that I could have not even gotten involved with something that was not healthy. So that's one thing that I wish I would have known. But furthermore, from like, you can't look back, you can't always like say, man, if I would have known then.
Yeah.
But because hard things, I wish I could have had more tools of how to handle trauma, because trauma is it impacts especially my kids, and I can see in my own classroom of like, there's some really tough stuff that people go through. And when I went through this trauma training through my school this summer, it completely changed my view on behavior, like how we label behavior as bad or whatever. And that it flows into a blended family, because like in my case, my kids come back and I'm their safe person. So poor Rob has to sit there and see the full unloading of all the emotions. And when you don't know what that actually means, you can take a great offense to it, and it becomes such an irritation. Mm-hmm. So for me, the trauma, like knowing how that impacts a child or even adult, because Rob's really good at seeing it in me. And he's getting really great about seeing the kids, but that has been such a hard thing to see the kids walk through, of the things that they still have to go through. What about you?
Yeah, I think understanding kids a little bit more. Like I just, I'm an adult. I was on my own, so I was hanging out with other adults. I wasn't around children, and so.
You weren't going to the park and hanging around with a whole bunch of little kids, like creepy guy.
Bad.
But just understanding that they don't process emotions the way I process my emotions. They don't understand them. I wish I would have been able to have a little bit more patience with them, because I lose my cool with them way more than I should over stupid things, over their emotions. And they don't understand why I'm angry, and I don't understand why they're upset. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's super beneficial having a spouse, though, that is educated in child development. I mean, I think that's something that's probably been super beneficial for you guys. It sounds to me anyway, Carie, you sound like you are you're not just been educated, you like care about that education. You can kind of hear it when you talk about it, so you can kind of see those things that happen with your own children, and being able to debrief Rob on some of these things. And it's like, hey, this isn't just happening, this is actually why this is happening. And I think it's easier, especially as a man, because we're very like, I need a reason for everything needs to be like reasoned. Like you're having a fit, you're throwing a fit. Okay, you don't have a reason to throw a fit, right? When we were kids, it was like, let me give you a reason to throw a fit. Like, if you're going to cry, let me give you a reason. Right, yeah. That's how we were raised, right? And so that's just not how things are done anymore, which isn't how it should be done. But, with us guys, it's like we have to have an understanding of it. Like, okay, well, if you are having a breakdown, like it's not a fit, right? And it's being educated on those things. And I think, having that opportunity to have a spouse that can help us understand that is amazing.
Yeah, and the oldest, he's just getting close to those teenage years, and so I think that things are going to be, I'm going to understand it a little bit more, because I understand teenage and young adult, but
I didn't.
You need boxing gloves.
Until we had 3 boys all as teenagers at the same time. Like they were like 14, 13, 12, 15, 14, 13, 16, 15, 14. I'm like, murder is going to happen in our house. Like murder.
And it was like, these boys, they were not screaming and yelling. It's just the way that they carried themselves and their attitudes. And I'm just like, I will break you. Like,
exactly.
I will break you.
Oh my gosh.
For real.
Right,
so Kirk did share
their website.
The website, so summitonstepfamilies.com. Yep. So that's in the comments. So that's cool.
Yeah, I did share that just so people that are listening and watching right now that maybe have a heart's desire like Rob and Carie do, that there's a resource there now that you guys can go to as well. Because when we first got it, began our journey in helping and being part of blended families like you guys, we had no idea there's this whole other sub-world going on. And there's a lot of people, especially in the Christian world, that care deeply because there's such a need for this.
Yeah.
So, just to let everybody know there's a website link down there for them to click on.
And we all need to encourage and lift each other up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you guys each, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, but if you guys could each give a piece of advice that you think from your own perspective to people that are coming into a marriage or into a blended family, one piece of advice, what do you think that you would give them? What would you be able to offer up?
Well, one thing that Rob encouraged us when we first started dating, he was really good about saying to me that we just have people in place that will speak into you the truth, not what you want to hear, but the truth, and hold you accountable to how your relationship's going. I think, especially when a blended family, like for me, I didn't want to just jump into, the next marriage and be where I was at that moment 10 years later type of thing. So I think having that wisdom panel to like speak into you and say, hey, that person's not treating you right here in this area, or hey, I love how, like, okay, for example, one day, there was a whole thing with previous experience where my parents were over at my house, and my former spouse refused to take out the trash. And Rob was over, we were just dating. He took out the trash. I kid you not. My dad comes barreling down the hall saying, Carie, Carie, Carie. And I'm like, what? He goes, Rob just took out the trash. And I'm like, yeah, he does that. And he's like, mind blowing. But so to have people speak into you of that, of like, when they see that person treating you in a good way or in a bad way, to be able to say to you, hey, I see this in them, and to take that wisdom from them. Because sometimes we're too close to the person to see good or bad what they really are. And I think that would probably be my advice, is to have people that will speak into you to say, yeah, good idea, bad idea type of thing.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. All right, Rob, you've had time to think.
Just study healthy relationships, and not just like healthy relationships in the world, but like understand what God wants for marriage. Understand, Ephesians 5 is great. You're supposed to sacrifice for your wife.
Yeah.
And, a lot of men, and I joke about it too. I always tell her that you got to submit to your husband, but it's give and take. You have to be willing to sacrifice. And, sometimes that means you worked all day. You're just wanting to sit in front of the TV, but she wants to talk. Well, guess what? If you stop and talk to her, it's going to be a lot better night than if you just ignore her.
Amen.
So I have a funny story about that. So probably it took 3 or 4 years into our relationship for me to actually even realize, God bless your heart, that I would come home from work, and for like the first hour and a half, I was like word vomiting on him, like about my day. I'm not kidding, for like an hour and a half. And then I would get it all out. And then I would be like, how was your day? And it took about a year and a half for me to even realize, or longer, for me to even realize how long he was doing that for me, and just allowing me to come home and just, women usually, there's studies, we use all of our words on that. So
and
I
some
think
of ours.
So I think that's great that you're recognizing that. And, he jokes about that sometimes too. Like, you love that word. I know you love that word. But something that Josh said one time on our podcast, and I had never heard him say it before, and it really hit home with me. He talks about men are, God tells them to sacrifice for their wives and to love them like Christ loved the church. And he said the way that spoke to him is the church is to love Christ and Christ is to love the church. Well, the church didn't always love Christ back, but Christ always loved the church. Never stops loving the church. And that really spoke to me a lot, being his wife. And when you have a man like that is going after God, it makes you want to be submissive. And I think we've looked at that as more of like a dirty word in our society. And it's not a dirty word at all.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife is a very type A, strong-willed woman, very, she's successful in the business world at her own right. And it's tough to come home to remove that, she's at work all day, and, most of the people she works with are with men. And so she comes home, it's like, okay, am I giving her a reason to follow me? Not just because the Bible tells me so,
But God helps with that on me too.
And I agree with that. And I think that's the point though, right? Is being submissive, not just to your partner, but to God, and I think that double-sided of that is really what helps, create a true healthy relationship. And not every people that are non-believers, they don't understand that, but us believers, we get that. But as we wrap up today, really, I want you guys to share with us maybe your favorite resource that you guys can come up with. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be marriage-wise or even blended family-wise. Maybe there's something personal development. Now, you can't name the Bible, right? It's an easy one, right? You can't name that one. Something else that maybe you guys have come across that you felt has been really helpful as an individual or a couple.
I've got a couple.
I'll go first because I think I only have one I wrote down. So he introduced it to me when we were talking before we started dating. It's called Redefine TV. It's a pastor from Texas. Really funny dude. So many good sermons. I've learned a lot. Like, I'll literally just put his sermons on the radio as I go to work every single morning, and he covers a variety of things. His ministry does. It's called Wife Academy. I think they just changed the name, but they talk. It's kind of a ministry for women of how to be a wife before you're a wife. So I did that like 2 or 3 times before I got married to him. So it was just that's a really good resource too to use is Redefine TV. It's on YouTube. That's one of mine.
Yeah, their tagline is redefining relationships righteously. So when I first started watching, it was just podcasts. He wasn't putting his sermons on the same channel. But there was like red flags, that women should look for when they're dating a guy, red flags when, the guy is dating a girl. And so I watched a lot of that because I was like, okay, I don't want to choose the wrong person again.
Yeah.
And so, that was one of my big ones. We didn't talk about it tonight, but the Conquer series, it is so important that men, trying to keep it G-rated. So it's pornography. Pornography is huge in our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
56% of divorces say that pornography was an issue. And the reason I started coming to this church was because they had the Conquer series, and I really didn't know what it was at the time. I just was looking for a men's group to belong to, and I ended up leading it, and that broke my addiction. And the relationship with your wife is completely different when you don't have those thoughts, those images, that stuff. And now that our oldest boy is getting to that age, I'm going to be well prepared to have these conversations with him because he goes to public school. He is not, at our house all the time. That stuff is out there, pop-ups on the computer just randomly. And so I would say anybody that is struggling with that, the Conquer series is a great resource.
That's awesome.
Not really marriage related, but
no, it is.
It is though.
Yeah. Yeah. And like what Satan is not dumb. Like he, over time, he knows how to get each of us in our weak spots. And we've talked about it on our podcast. I feel bad for men. God created you guys as visual creatures, and sex is everywhere. Like everywhere you look, teenage girls are dressing more and more like walking around in lingerie, even going to public schools. I mean, some of the back to school pictures I saw, even some of the kids that go to our church, with crop tops and stuff on, I was shocked to see what the girls are wearing. And you drive down by us, Dort Highway, there's billboards as big as mansions that are showing half naked girls on there stripping. And it's like, guys really have to be conscientious of what their eyes are doing.
You have to be intentional.
Yeah. And where they're going. Yeah. And then women also have to be intentional about because we are emotional creatures. So a lot of women are just like, they treat men like they're disgusted, like perverts, stuff like that. Well, that's not what it is. It's God created them to be visual creatures. And if they're making a conscious effort, we need to help encourage them. If they're saying, hey, please don't have the Victoria's Secret catalog be sent to our house because I don't want that in my house as a trigger, don't have it sent to the house. like berate him and make him feel bad about that. Encourage him to be honest with you about those things and make that a boundary in your home. So I think that's awesome that you shared that.
Yeah, I think it's a great resource. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
You know, it is. And I think that, like
it's
you said,
within a lot of marriages.
it's within half of the problems of divorce and marriages. I mean, you just said it, Rob. So that's an amazing resource.
Our church, they didn't require it for every guy, but they really wanted every guy in the church to go through it. I mean, the guys that are, you know, the older guys probably don't even know how to use it here, but for the younger guys, I would say that, you know, if you can go through that before you even get married, because there was one line in there that it didn't hit me until the third time through the thing. It was, you know, you need to break this addiction for your spouse because, you know, it's going to hurt your spouse. And then if you relapse, your spouse has to live through that a whole nother time. And so, like, right as we were talking, I was like, okay, I don't know that she's going to be my spouse someday, but if I'm going to have a spouse, then now is the time to break this addiction. And,
That's awesome.
you know, and the guys in our group is, you know, groups of like 4 or 5, you're supposed to hold each other accountable. So you're supposed to be calling your group, you know, once or twice a week or whatever, and, you know, saying, hey, how's it going? You know, are you struggling with anything? Can we pray for you? It's a real tight-knit group. It's made to be a safe place to be vulnerable because, you know, especially for men, it's hard to be vulnerable in front of other men. And so for us all to be in the same seat, going through the same thing, and they point that out, it's not, you know, everybody is going to struggle with this at some point. It's just on what level they struggle with it. So
true.
So good.
So as we just are wrapping this right up, so if it's okay, maybe I can have you guys share those resources in our private Facebook group.
Yeah.
If you're cool with that, you know, I know you guys belong in that. So, you know, that'd be really super helpful. So if anybody's interested in that and you're looking for those things, just go to joshandchristy.com. There's a link to our private Facebook group that you can welcome to join that. We keep it private. And the reason why it was private, it's not that we're super big gatekeepers. We keep it private because we want people to feel safe that they're in there and they're sharing things. So that's the only reason why we make it private. But if you're part of a blended family and you have a marriage that you want to work and make better, like, it's a group for you guys. So Rob and Carie, we want to thank you guys so much for taking your time out, being on here, sharing your heart, sharing your story with us. And, you know, and we're super encouraged by you guys. We really appreciate you guys being on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it more than he does. So
Thank you for having us.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
You know, I just like to beat you.
Oh, I know. Always.
I just like to give you a hard time, baby.
I know. You're always trying to beat me. So we want to thank Rob and Carie so much for being on here. Thank you guys so very, very much. And do you have any closing remarks before we shut it down?
No, I love having them on. I love how authentic and true to themselves and be willing. It's a special thing when people are willing to come onto our podcast and share a little bit about their lives, how they met, some of their struggles, how they've overcame some things like that. So I think it's very special. Time is our most valuable commodity. That's the only resource we can't ever give back. So when someone is giving their time and allowing us to see a little bit into their lives, that's a very special gift that we're allowed. So I love it.
True. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll be here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live. We'll see you then.
Bye.